Welcome to the MF, that is the masculine feminine quadrant, where we'll be breaking down distinctions and exploring the four corners of the two dual forces of masculine and feminine creation. Join us for some deeply reflective and penetrating conversation and an exchange of energies to open your body, your mind, and your being. Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but rather have these because we have acted rightly. Shall I finish the quote? Let me finish it. I think it's important. I'll finish it. Taking it a bit deep. Yeah. A good start. We just agree, there's a lot of agreement here.
Right.
This is a really nice, all right, okay, this is nice.
It's like the masculine and feminine, they found their flow. Yeah.
We found our flow.
Then, but it was like, oh yeah, you're balancing, going to parties, getting home at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, taking a shower, and then going right out to work right after that, not sleeping at all. So I'm like, oh, balance, it's not, it's like the lies that we tell ourselves.
I think, you can look to other people that are inspirational and think, oh my God, where do I even begin? Where do I start? I'll never get there. And then actually, I think it's an encouraging message because the story is that actually excellence is not won overnight. That's not something that's ordained. We're not necessarily born with excellence. I mean, maybe some of us are born with a little bit more willpower than others. Like some of us have got personality traits that allow us to, to lean more into commitment.
Damn, Leos.
Hello, and welcome in everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode, our 10th episode of that MFQ, that masculine feminine quadrant. So before we go any further, always just want to do a bit of housekeeping, and we just ask that you like, you share, you subscribe, share with your friends. If you have anything to say, then please share them in the comments and, please join the conversation. Please give us your questions. If there's questions you want us to unpack, then throw them in the mix. If there's advice you want us to unpack, then again, throw that in the mix. We want this to be an ongoing conversation with you and with us. And that is me, Shakalish, your host, and Max. And we are really, really delighted to bring this episode to you today. And we are talking about habits and commitments. And I guess we were reflecting and we were like, we really cover some really big, heavy stuff in this show. We're not afraid to go deep.
Heavy.
We're not afraid to get stuck in and roll up our sleeves and really get into some real big nitty gritty, philosophical, deep stuff. And then we kind of thought actually, and then amongst that, we both of us are incredibly passionate about well-being, about health, about awareness, about, emotional health, and these things. And we really, both of us incredibly passionate about holistic well-being, which is part of what, brought this project together between us. And so, we realize actually, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about, how does it come into being? How can we start to improve our lives? And how can we start to create habits and commitments that start to build towards that end so that, when the time is needed, we've got things that can carry us in our time of need, rather than just, scrabbling when we're in a crisis. So this is really just about kind of how we can explore that. And as always, I always like to add a little quote to try to give us a kind of nice, broad picture. So I started with a quote from Aristotle, which is a very popular quote. Usually it's taken, there's a little quote that's used, but it's part of a bigger quote. So it goes like this, and we'll share this in the show notes as well. It will be down in the link as well. So this is the quote. It says, "Excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but rather have these because we have acted rightly. These virtues are formed in man by his doing the actions. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And there's more. Shall I finish the quote? Let me finish it. I think it's important. I'll finish it. The good of man is a working of the soul in a way of excellence in a complete life. For it is not one swallow or one fine day that makes spring. So it is not one day or a short time that makes a man blessed and happy. And I think that there's something really important in that quote, because essentially what he's saying is a blessed life is not something that happens to us and then we start to act right. It's actually our actions that create a blessed life of excellence or achievement or whatever it is we want to achieve in our lives. And so that's what we'll be talking about today. So Max, do you want to jump in and kind of, yeah.
I love Aristotle. It's my guy. Next to Socrates, that's my guy. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I feel like exactly what you said. A lot of what we talk about is very deep and it may seem theorized. But both of us have, you know, a plethora of experiences. We have really deep and etheric relationships with not just the cognitive, but our physical and our emotional and spiritual bodies. And like you said, this wholeness embodied is really what we want to bring, this wholeness of awareness. It's all of those in conjunction. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the hard pressed things that we do talk about, it's kind of creating the foundation. And like really the premise of this is perception and perspective. And these are the things that, you know, our higher faculties start to cultivate and shape. And this is where I started to look at this episode was like, okay, our habits are the things that we commit to, but I feel like we have these, like it's one or the other. You know, I got to focus on what I'm committed to, or I got to focus on my habits. And like the one's not working, I got to shift the other. But I'm a personal believer in sustainability. And if you have a structure that's based on something outside of that, like, you know, Aristotle was saying, this excellence in it, and it doesn't come from the doing, it comes from being that, you know, these things that you're embodying, then you receive that blessed, that success, that achievement, whatever you want to call life. And for me, that was really powerful of the expression of our higher faculties and being outside of that holistically and looking at the whole thing and placing these little pieces as the observer in line so that they can become sustainable. So you don't have to focus on your commitments daily and then you're giving it all your, you know, you're like looking at your wife or looking at your partner because you committed to them. You have to focus on this relationship. How should it look? What should it look like? Then I'm looking at Instagram and seeing all these things and it's like, nah, like we need to understand like where our power comes from and really take a step back and give ourselves some freedom and liberation in that. So yeah, I'm excited about this episode and what it brings. And yeah, just even you throwing in this quote last minute was like, I think that's beautiful. And for him just to use those words in the way that he did, yeah, I fully support that. Signed and approved by MaxWELLness.
Yeah, and I think it's an encouraging message. I think because I think often, you know, particularly depending on where we are in our lives and like what it is we need or what we're looking for, I think, you know, you can look to other people that are inspirational and think, oh my God, where do I even begin? Where do I start? I'll never get there. And then actually, I think it's an encouraging message because the story is that actually like excellence is not won overnight. That's not something that's ordained. We're not necessarily born with excellence. I mean, maybe some of us are born with a little bit more willpower than others. Like some of us have got personality traits that allow us to, you know, to lean more into commitment.
Damn, Leos.
Who are the signs with the willpower, the most willpower? Put it in the comments.
You're right. That's
apparently
a fact.
Capricorn. Well, apparently Capricorns are like, yeah, no,
really?
like yeah, because we're climbers.
I feel like they just have drive. I don't know about willpower, but because I'm triple Capricorn, so
oh yeah, and you're.
but I do have a lot of
I was
willpower.
gonna say.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
gonna,
yeah, you're right.
uh,
Maybe we got something there. We got to do an episode on higher faculties connected to astrology.
I definitely
It'll
don't know
see.
enough. I definitely don't know enough about astrology to do a whole show on astrology, but I mean, but I guess, but the whole point is, I guess some of us are born with like personality traits that
All
are
right.
that lend themselves to being able to, yeah, like lock in things or commit to things.
Yeah.
And in that sense, there's a head start there. But actually, it's really well, if you think about like brushing your teeth, I mean, I'm hoping all of our audience brushes their teeth every day, but like, like things like that, where that's something we do. We just do it every day. Then it becomes a habit. It's just something you do in your day. And
Hmm.
actually, we can start to program in other things in our day. Like there's stuff that are like dutiful, like, cleaning your teeth or whatever, having a shower or eating your breakfast.
Hmm.
These are your things, but then actually you can start to program in everyday things into your day. And then over time,
Right.
you can like really start to see a marked difference in, yeah, like your well-being, or like you say, freedom or liberate, whatever it is you're looking for, whatever it is your goals are. And I think that was another thing that we kind of spoke about with this episode. We were kind of like, this is maybe less philosophical and theoretical, but actually more focused on like, actually, how can we attain the things that we want? What is the process by which
Hmm.
we, move from one
Apply
thing
all of
to
the stuff that we've talked about.
another.
You sort through the muck and then actually apply it. Because yeah, I feel like it is very I feel like that's a piece of it as to what you said was when you're programming in these habits, like yeah, like brushing your teeth and washing your hair or going to the gym or eating your breakfast. I think it's really important though, and this is something I've exercised not as much now unless I want to like expand and I'm in a phase of expansion, but I've just come out of that phase, so I'm settled in it. It's looking at these rituals and looking at these ceremonies that we step back and say, what is the result that I want to create? And then you can either allow this structure to come in form of like what things you need to do to get there, or you can, go based on how like we are normally taught of like, okay, let me get from how do I get from my point to my goal? And you
Mhm.
like work from here to there, like
Mm.
A to B. Rather, I like to work from B to A and allow like the spirit to guide me in that way of like, okay, this is what you want. You see this. Now, what does that look like coming to you? And this is something I explain a lot with like magnetization of how you bring the things to you, rather than going to them. And I think this is a huge point of understanding the habits that we're actually creating, like literally creating, not just placing habits, and then the commitment that comes with them. Because I feel like that is a huge obstacle that most people approach is like, okay, if I want to look better, right? Okay, then I need to eat better, I need to go to the gym more, and I need to maybe fucking take the elevator rather than take the stairs rather than take the elevator, right? But when you're cultivating, like you said, these deeper characteristic traits, it's like, how do you exercise that? You have to exercise that before you can get to the physical body, because how are you going to commit to it if I really don't want to do it? You know? And I
Yes.
think that's the hugest obstacle that people face most of the time. So that's usually where I start is like, well, let's look at your traits. Let's look at why you are not committing, because maybe you're focused too much on committing and then you get too stressed out, or you're too focused on the habit and then it doesn't stick because you don't have enough want. Let's go back to what those higher things are and where they come from. So I'm
Yeah.
a huge advocate of like result based thinking and
Yeah.
result based planning
And
for sure.
sustainability as well, like implementing things that are actually sustainable for the person. Because one
Yeah.
person might have like incredible amounts of willpower, able to do certain, like can bite off big chunks. For another person, maybe it's not that. Like, I think it is just working individually with our own
Right.
energy and personality, and working with that, not against our energy. We're not trying to like jack ourselves up into something that we're not. It's really
Yeah.
about, yeah, working with
And
our energy.
that's really what I want to approach here is like, um, giving some guidance in a way, and like some practical things that you can do to create habits for yourself. This
Yeah.
is not something like, oh, follow this gym plan, or oh, follow this, yoga routine, or oh, follow this eating routine. It's like, this is just an organic structure that you can take and place into your life. And I'm going to share some experiences that I went through, because a lot of these questions brought up some like personal stuff for me that I was like, oh, well, this is the way that I kind of went about it. But it's also other ways that I use with, like, in my men's work with a lot of my clients. Like, I've been using this for years. So yeah, I feel like it can provide that sense of unique creative habits.
Mhm.
um
Yeah.
and yeah, I feel like we talked about before, this is a part of changing your perception on things, and that's kind of like what our first question was, how can we learn to shift our perception without changing our perspective, and I think I want to get your answer on this first, because I have like an expanded uh perspective
I
on
know,
this.
because I was like, you're gonna
But
unpack this. I feel
also,
like
like,
there's
well, actually, I wanna unpack it a little bit, but I want to give the sense and like the identity of both of them for me, and just what the difference is, because some people might be like, why are they even asking? This is the same thing. And if you are thinking that, you need to hit the like and subscribe button right now and keep listening, because you're in for it.
I guess the first thing I thought when I saw this was why not change your perspective? Sometimes your perspective should and could be changed, should be changed, or can be changed, or life changes your perspective actually. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And so I guess I'm going to let you unpack your kind of like differentiation of like perception and perspective. But I guess how I sort of that felt about it was like, your perspective is kind of how you see things, how you're interpreting things, how you're computing the field that's in front of you, basically, like how I see my life, the story that I'm telling myself about things. That's my perception. And my perspective is actually like kind of where I'm situated, like where I actually am situated in time and space, like the reality. So it's kind of like, I guess, the perception versus the reality. That's kind of how I understood it. And and I guess that's relevant in some situations where maybe there isn't a possibility or a desire to change where one is situated, and so therefore one needs to change one's perception of how you're looking at, if you want to change something but you don't necessarily want to change, like, I don't know, I guess I see it as little change and big change. You can kind of see where you look at things can change, and that changes things. And then there's big changes, which is like, I'm going to get up and move to another country, or I'm going to actually, and then your perception is completely different. I mean, it's like this is a completely different perspective, because you're literally situated in a completely different space and time zone. So that's kind of how I saw it. And I guess it made me think about the hangman. I always do bring sometimes a little bit of tarot in, because it made me think about the tarot, the hanged man in
But I
the
love it. It makes it sound cool and esoteric.
because the hanged man is hung upside down, and he didn't choose to be there. He doesn't really want to be there. He's not really sort of, but he's hanging upside down on a tree, and someone put him there. And in the card, what that's
It's
about.
triggering a lot of my ancestral trauma right now, but anyway.
Well, it's actually got a different historical like meaning. I mean, I hear you. That's like, oh,
Right. I'm like, you're talking to
yeah.
a black man that got out of America.
No. Yeah, but it's definitely not got that context. Well, maybe no, it doesn't. It predates that. It's like,
Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's to do with thieves. So they used to hang up and actually shame, like, so it's something that's in the culture from like, but anyway, so the hangman apparently is a criminal, but we don't interpret the card like that. But the whole point is that he's upside down. He doesn't want to be there. He's stuck there. And actually, upside down, he's like looking at the world in a completely different way. And he learns something new about himself, and about the world, because he's got a completely different perspective. And not just a perception, but a completely different perspective, because he's been literally turned upside down. And there's something in that that's about, well, the card sometimes is just surrender. It's about surrender. It's about like, oh, I didn't want it like this, but hey, I could look at things slightly differently. So it kind of includes kind of, I guess, both, that actually he goes through the surrender of that perspective, to surrendering to a new perspective. Actually, what he learns is to change his perception. His perception changes in that, and he learns something. He becomes enlightened because he surrenders into new knowledge. So I guess that's kind of how I would say, and kind of relating it back to this show and like what we're talking about today, I guess, yeah, like it depends how transformative we want to be in our lives, you know. And I think I would just invite us to not be afraid of transformation when it knocks on the door. And actually that can be a really big part of it. Can just be like little mini shifts, or it could be like a really big, you know what, I'm coming out, I want the world to know. Like it could be just like, you know, like I'm ready to like really be a completely new person, and I'm just like, I'm here for it. Like whatever, you know, like, yeah, I think there's just space for both. And that's, yeah.
Why not?
That's how I interpret that question.
Well, this is a interesting turn of events because I completely agree with you. Absolutely. I feel like perception is the small change and perspective is the big change. Like it's the observer that's behind, the spectator, if you will, the personal spectator, you know, and this perception is this personal like section that we have that we focus on, you know, so it's kind of like this tunnel vision. That's how I see it, from the ether and the universal coming into the more finite. So I don't even have to unpack it. I can just sit here and just answer the question of how can we learn to shift that perception without shifting that perspective. And I think just to kind of frame that into something small, like how you look at your life daily, you know, if let's take weight loss, right? For example, if I want to get in shape, okay, I have to change my perspective about this also determines like where this comes from, because if you have a terrible relationship with food, like if you're overeating or if you're undereating or if you have body dysmorphia, all of these different things, like these are things that we should identify about ourselves before we start trying to focus on our perception of, you know, getting up in the gym. I mean, getting up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym and like forcing ourselves to create this habit that we're not going to commit to, you know? And we know we're not going to commit to it because we haven't listened to what the perspective is saying. Let me step back into my perspective and say, okay, why do I want to change? What am I really wanting to change? And when it comes down to it, it's like, oh, I actually want to feel better about myself, you know, when I put my jeans on, or I want to feel better when I go out and play with my kids. I want to play with them for, you know, an hour or 2 hours and not 8 minutes, you know, then I'm out of breath. Or I want to feel better when I walk out of the parking lot and, you know, get to my job and I'm not out of breath, you know. I want to feel stronger. Like figure out something there from that perspective, like in that spectator's point, and then you usher that down to how you can change that within your perception. Because now when you get up in the morning, you'll be thinking about that. The spectator is going to be saying, hey, like this is actually what we really want. So now this is why we're doing this. Oh, okay. I get it now. This is why I need to get up when my alarm goes off and I don't need to hit that snooze. So I feel like learning that is really just learning yourself and getting in tune with that relationship with that spectator. And yes, that can be done through meditation. That can be done through cognitive behavior techniques. Like I have And yeah, like you even did this, Shaka, the internal space course, and it gives you a deeper insight into sections of your body, but I call them spaces, but it's really just spectators that are within your body that you resonate with. And it's a way of identifying like what that language is. And then it's ultimately up to what you want to use it for. You know, if you just want to use it for internal insight and like see how, you know, my solar plexus is, which is basically willpower. If I want to see, you know, a deeper insight into my third eye, which is really just imagination or intuition, you know, however you want to place it. These are certain things to exercise that external, you know, that wider spectator's view, and then your perception starts to change. Of when you walk into the kitchen and rather than going straight to the fridge, you go to get a glass of water or something like that, you know, and you start to think about these different habits. So learning that, I would say, would be just to go inside and learn that spectator first, because then you're never going to allow the habit to be created, and then you're never going to actually commit to it. And then what we do is our perception is focused on the commitment in the habit, and then we're just constantly doing this, and you're just going back and forth using more energy, and then the the result becomes harder to create. So you're not sustainable because you're using more energy and not really creating any effect. So yeah, I love how you just set that up. And like it's the same thing with the hanged man. Like maybe he doesn't want to be there, but you have to ultimately surrender in that way to see something differently, and almost like place yourself in a I wouldn't say forced position, but in a completely opposite position to see that. Because ultimately, you don't have to change your perspective. You don't have to change that spectator. Like what I want to feel better. No, I don't want to feel better. I want to lose weight because I'm too big. You know, it's like, no, don't change that spectator.
Yeah.
Listen to that and change the perception of how you're acting in the world and how you're interacting with the world.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's what's going to give us more motivation to actually really achieve the things that we want to, because it's not just a surface goal. We're actually going a little bit deeper and asking deeper questions as to where's our motivation for doing this. If you can locate the motivation within, then you've got more chance of, you know, feeding that motivation and maintaining that, you know, the momentum.
Yes. And I'm so glad you used that word motivation, because I don't believe in motivation. Like, fuck motivation. But some people are driven off of that. And that makes sense, because motivation is tied to your perception. It's how I see things. But it's like you need a motive to enact it.
Yes.
But the inspiration comes from the perspective. So you need that inspiration to feed the motivation, you know? And I think that's the trick. Like when you hear, you know, I mean, I think he actually said it, E.T. I forgot his like whole name, but he's like the motivational speaker. You know, it's because people are motivational speakers because they're just speaking it to you. You've already said these things in your head, but you're just hearing it out loud now. So they're motivating you. But for a motivational speaker to inspire you is completely different. You have to be in spirit. And that's why it's called inspired, because you need to go back into that spectator, which is truly just your spirit, and find that flame.
Oh, damn you. I like this. I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Like
because so many people get hung up on motivation. And it's like, oh, I don't have any motivation to go to the gym. Oh, I don't have any motivation to, you know, get to that yoga class. Or I don't have any motivation to go sit and meditate. It's like, of course, but you still got a spirit, right? And I think that's what happens a lot with willpower, especially when I do work around that. It's like when people start to have their willpower diminish in these higher faculties like imagination and perception. Perception is also a higher faculty as well. It's like it starts from these little mini things. Oh, I don't have motivation. Then that's an affirmation that you don't have something that you're tying to something deeper as a feeling. A motivation isn't a feeling, it's just a motive, you know? But then you let that diminish your thought of, where is my spirit in this, you know? And I think that's a powerful resource to tap into that we need to really start getting back to.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
Because that is ultimately what creates a bigger like energetic field in you, in your auric field. You know, when somebody, take for example, when's the last time you saw somebody that has sex, like some real good sex? They're fucking glowing, right? Or somebody that just got a massage and the next day they're glowing. It's because they are rejuvenated, they're inspirited, like energy is moved, all the stagnation, like all these things, and they're just enlivened, like all of their cells are permeating and you feel that energy. Or somebody that does work out a lot or just had a really good workout and they come up to you and they're like, they got their smoothie, they're like, they're beaming, you know, you see that and you get inspirited, you get inspired. You're like, I want to go fucking work out right now, you know, and I got jeans on, you know. But that's the part of that inspiration. It's the field that you create with your energy, you know. And even people that don't work out, don't do all these things, you can still exercise that creation of a bigger auric field.
Yeah.
Because you're creating those things, and this is something that you're committed to, you know, even yoga.
Yeah.
And like meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
like,
absolutely. Like there's an aliveness and like a kind of aliveness in the spirit, in the cells that are just shining
I
out.
got the spirit.
Yeah.
The spirit. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, we're off to a good start. We just like agree, like there's a lot of agreement here.
Right.
This is a
I'm
really nice,
loving
all
it.
right, okay, this is nice.
It's like the masculine and feminine, they found their flow.
We
Yeah,
found our
yeah,
flow,
yeah.
man.
Because I mean, I think this is something that goes for men and women alike, you know, and it's like how, because we all have perception, we all have, you know, perspective, and we all have commitment issues, you know, but it's like, why do we have those commitment issues? Because it's like, when's the last time we're going back into our spectator and saying, like, what do I like, even if it's a relate, like, even let's take it into the relational space just for a second, because I feel like we want to create this stronger feel, because this second question was like super powerful for me and I loved it. And but when you take that into the relational space, it's something simple like, oh, commitment habits. I mean, commitment issues, right? Like we hear this all the time in a relational space, and it's like, well, maybe the person doesn't have commitment issues. Maybe they just didn't commit to you. They just created a habit of like, you know, being with you, or, you know, whatever the situation is. But it's like the deeper back end of what that person truly wanted to create, you know. And I think that happens a lot in like our day and age, you know, with um so many things that are going on. Like you have instant gratification, you have short attention spans, you have so many different things that happen within our life that we start to, again, with our perception is fixed on this person's commitment to this thing. But then we look at all their other habits that they're doing, and it's like, why am I not getting that? You know, and it comes down to attention, you know. And I feel like that is the part where, if we're creating sustainable things within our perception and within our field, and one thing is feeding another, like you have a habit that's feeding a habit, and that's what I'm ultimately, like, my person is going to be committed to that, because that's just a way of my life now. It becomes a lifestyle. And when you start to build a lifestyle, like even with the yogic practices, it's the same way. You don't look at it as commitment anymore. It's just like, how do I integrate this into my life, and can I create something sustainable that suits my ultimate state of being, whether it be evolution, whether it be enlightenment, whether it be, you know, losing 50 pounds, whatever it may be, you know, whatever you set that tone to, and that ultimately becomes your frequency, you know, and that shows up a lot in the relational space.
Yeah.
I feel. So yeah, I feel like men and women alike can relate to this, and take a lot of these things from this, because it's happening to all of us. A show.
For sure. So go on then. Do you want to jump into that second question?
Absolutely. I
So
thought you'd never ask. So when building a stronger field, how can we tether down into new and healthy habits outside of old programs. Ugh, ugh, ugh. And if people, if you didn't get that, I'm gonna break it down for you. When you think of old programs, right, you can think of narratives. Let's take, for example, self-sabotaging, right? This is one of my favorite ones because I love, that's like in my token, I'm a dissolver to catalyze. That's what I love to do. I love dissolving shit because it's like that's where your power is. When you have old programs like self-sabotaging, right? Then we tell us, oh, I'm self-sabotaging, I'm setting myself up, I don't want to see myself, succeed. Why would that happen? Okay, great, cool. You may believe that. But the healthy habits that are going to leverage that and break that cycle are something that we need to tether down to. So it's again using this framework of our perception, which is really close, and coming back to that perspective and that spectator. Now, to build a bigger field and a stronger field, you need to be revisiting that spectator view multiple points of time. You come back in when you need to, tweak something, and step back out. Let it do its thing. And that ultimately is like a deep set trust within yourself. And when you start to do this and you start to practice this in and out and wait, in and wait, that is placing, again, these new habits, these healthy habits, because you're saying, okay, what am I focused on? I'm focused more on this perspective, what this perspective wants. I'm not looking to satisfy this perception. You know what I mean? So that perception is the thing of, oh, I've done this again, and it's because I really don't want this, and I really don't want to see myself, or I'm procrastinating because you looking at you putting something off to the side is not procrastination. That's your perception. But if you step back from that and say, okay, well, maybe I just don't have enough to do and I need a little bit more, so maybe I need to take on a couple other projects. Maybe I need to spread out and delegate my things so that I'm not focused on one thing. And I can use myself for that example. Like I have a lot of energy and I'm very like sacral driven. So I never really had a problem with these narratives in this way, but it was always interesting, like when I was learning them in school and going through these different protocols and like how to diagnose somebody with these and all these different things and learning like where they came from, the archetypes that they support and blah blah blah. And it was like I always ask myself that question, like, why would somebody be harming themselves? And then I started looking up self-harm and all these different things, right? But what I started to notice is that this sense of building healthy habits, right? You can create a healthy habit, but where is that coming from? So our perspective, if we're so focused right here, it's about tapping in and understanding where our energies are. So for me, I was like, oh, you have a lot of energy and you keep like over pouring into one cup, get more cups. Why am I going to self-sabotage and like cut myself off and dim your light or make you small? Because then that just perpetuates something else and it diminishes your field. It diminishes your imagination. It diminishes your willpower, it diminishes your perception, your intuition, all of these different things. And you start to create a smaller auric and energetic and spiritual field. And when you do that enough, you become closed. And when you become closed, your mentality can't flow efficiently, that energy that's coming in, because you're consistently being anointed and you have this divine light always consistently coming through. And as you have this closed, feeling, the same way with empaths, you feel the sense of anxiety. You feel this sense of like everybody's emotion, this sensitivity, this closeness, this claustrophobia, whatever it may be. And we start to close in on ourselves. And then let alone all the other energetic stuff that comes in from the world, transmissions, what this girl looks like on Instagram and what this dude is doing on YouTube and blah, blah, blah. You have all these different things that start to play into that. But the way to tether down is to learn how to create that space for yourself and to open up a little bit more. And that is coming back to that perception or perspective and saying, okay, what is this? What is this result that you want? And when it tells you, you tether down to that and you say, okay, that's what I want. Because now when you come back to that space and you let go of the perception, then what you're doing is you're trusting yourself.
Mhm.
So when you're trusting yourself, you're embodying trust. Now you're on a higher vibration. Now when you come back in and you tweak it a little bit, and then you come back and you say, okay, I'm going to put in like this habit because that's going to be the next step, because now I'm full. I got some trust. Now you get more security. Now you get more empowerment. Now you get more interest. Like you get all of these higher, more, I would say, expanded vibrations. And that's what you're being filled on. You're not looking at that funnel and focusing on trying to get everything that's coming through here, trying to catch everything through this little dot. It's like, step the fuck back.
Mm.
And that gives you ability to expand more. You reduce and dissolve anxiety. You reduce and you resolve narratives, programming, conditions, self-limiting beliefs, all of these things, because now there's so much space and so many more things that fill up your vibration that there's no, like you see this old little thing, you're like, oh, that's not me, you self-sabotaging. Oh, you're trying to say that's procrastination. Oh yeah, that's not. Actually, I just need another project to do. And then you take on another project, and then that builds your confidence more, and you get more self-confident. You get all of these gifts and these true blessings that I believe truly are our divine birthright.
Mhm.
But it all comes down to tethering into that and listening to what those new healthy habits can be to create that result from that perspective.
Mm.
I love this one. I
Yeah, no,
just,
and I
yeah.
really hear you, because it's like you're working with a deep self rather than a surface level self, like rather than a kind of surface, kind of
Mm-hmm.
frivolous wants and desires. You're kind of working with a deep aspect of self and your own energy in order to, shift. And yeah, I think I again, there's no disagreement here on this one, because I really think that, like, you know kind of coming back what we were mentioning in the beginning, like we've all got slightly different energies. And when
Mm-hmm.
we think about goals, when we're thinking about attaining something or reaching a certain type of goal, that's not the same goal for all of us. That doesn't all look the same. That's like very much unique
Right.
to each of us. And so what we really want to do is figure out our own unique set of energetic codes, you could say, or like, like this deep self, like what are we truly motivated by? What is it? Where is that coming from? Then we can work with our energy to create the things that we want, rather than, like you say, like we're just suddenly on the surface level. I want that dress. Like I want to be, like, I want to be able to wear that, or I want to lose weight. And like, actually, where's that coming from? Like, what is the, like what you said, like what are the deeper motivations of where that comes from? And I think that's really how you break habits and create new programs, is when you really understand where that's coming from. And you might not even, it might even need to be like big changes. It might not even need, you might even want to change, you know what I mean? But you won't know until you work at a deeper level. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
even I hear these things of like, people have like such negative self-talk, like, oh, I'm lazy, I didn't get up at whatever time. Well, maybe rest, like maybe rest is good. Like rest is, anyway, I'm a big advocate. This is
Or
like,
maybe you're
I've
not a
attended to
morning
all my,
person.
hmm?
Or
Maybe
maybe you're not a morning person. Maybe you need to go
exactly,
to the gym in the evening or the afternoon. You ever
exactly.
thought of that?
Exactly. And it's like you're just working with your energy, rather than, trying to fit yourself into a box and then telling yourself you're an awful person because you're not fitting into this box. And it's like, actually, no, you can find ways to access
Oh,
new habits without having to,
society has fucked us.
yeah, I mean, well, yeah.
Just
And I
you
mean,
saying that, sorry, it just triggered so much like tragedy and compassion in my heart, and just the way that people talk to themselves. Oh,
yeah.
if you're out there and you talk to yourself this way and you have this type of narrative, hit that like and subscribe button, and at least like this, and then drop a comment below, because yeah, oh, please. The narratives. We need to, that's
Yeah,
the hugest thing. I feel like we need to stop and
yeah,
get out of that.
100%. Like it's like, this kind of, yeah, beating ourselves up because we're not who we think we should be, when actually it's really about
Hmm.
really a deeper understanding of actually who we are, and then tending to those parts of ourselves so that we can bring out the best of ourselves, which I think quite a nice segue into the third question, really. I mean, I didn't really have anything else to add on that second question. So I guess we just like head straight into the third one, which is how can you attract the best version of yourself if you have no clue of who the best version of you actually is? And I know, do you mind if I just jump in on this one? Because
Absolutely.
I love this question. I got so many things to say on this. And I think, but the first thing actually is to kind of pick up on your point about, this, what society tells us about us, ourselves. And most of that being a lie. So even the concept of a best self that we have is often not really related to who we actually are, but is often related to some external thing that we've seen, or is been imposed on us, or has been celebrated and put on a billboard and told us that that's the pinnacle of humanness, and you should want to
Or
aspire to
that
be like
we've
that.
already created,
Hmm?
or a version of ourselves that we've already created out of that.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I guess there was like a few things that came up for me when reading this question. Like the first thing is
Mm,
that in many ways, the best version of yourself is actually already here. Like it's already present in this moment, because you were born. It's your innate birthright. It's already here. That essence, the essence of your uniqueness as a human being is already present in from the moment you were born, from the moment
right.
you were present on this earth. God put you here for a reason. There is some essence within you that
You
makes you.
just don't know it yet. You the one that's out the loop.
Exactly. So it's not outside of oneself. It's already
Mm,
within. Um, I would say that. And then I think the other thing that came up for me in this question was, and particularly within the healing, well-being, coaching, I want to say industries as such. Um,
mm,
and I've got an article about this, the kind of what is a yoga. I kind of touched on this, the kind of what is a yogi. So I think when we come into like well-being or health or healing kind of modalities, we then have a concept of like, oh, I need to be this fully formed, fully healed, slender, like workout, whatever it is, whatever your kind of idea of what this best person should be. Like, I need to be like fit, I need to have abs, I need to have done my, family trauma work, I need to have done whatever it is, this whole list of things. And actually, like, I feel like that's a really unhealthy like way of working, because
absolutely.
again, like you're really wanting to work with your own energy, and actually like if you accept that your best self is already here, then you don't even need to have a concept of what your best self you're working towards, because really what you really need to be working towards is, and your body's going to give you feedback in every day of, is this good for me or is this not? How does this make me feel? Like, is this enhancing my energy? Is this giving me more zest for life? Do I have more energy for the things that I want? Am I enjoying my life more? Am I laughing more? Am I able to relax more? Whatever those signals are, that there is more well-being that's present in your life, then those are your signals of success, not necessarily whether or not you fit this mold of thing that you think you should be. It's actually expressed through your everyday life and your genuine well-being. And in order to do
Mm,
that, you have to work with who you actually are, and not who you actually think you should be or who you want to be. And this is
mm,
definitely a lesson that I learned in my yoga practice, because I think, like I said in like the last episode, when I first started to practice yoga, I had this concept of what a yogi is. Yogis are all about peace, and yogis are all about, and I wanted to be a yogi so much. I wanted to, and it came from a heartfelt place, because it came from a devotion to the practice. It was like, I just want to do this practice like how you're supposed to do it. And through time, through years of practice, obviously, um, what I realize is it's the practice that is doing the work, not, there is no end goal. There is no kind of like, oh, this is who Shaka is as a yogi. It's like, no, the practice is working through me to help me be at peace with what is present and who I actually am, and giving me signals about how to work with my own energy. And that is what's helping me live a more full life and be what I would I say my best self? I don't know. On a good day, maybe.
Well, that contradicts what you just said. You
It's
said
still
your
a
best
work
self
in,
is here.
no, because I feel like it's still a work in progress. I mean, I guess that because that, and then maybe
Okay,
that's
so
kind of what
so
I
I
got from
think
this
that's the
question, which is
question
like,
though, is like how can you attract that?
well, yeah, I think, I guess, and for me, I'm always about the mystery. You know me, I'm always about the mystery. I always pay homage to the mystery. Mystery's always here. I always say life has got to have her share, because she always wants a piece. You can't have it all your own way and think of it how you're going to have it. Like, she wants to have her share, and often
Uh,
she's got another little trick on her sleeve, and you've got to give her dues. And so the road is long and it's winding. You never know where it's going to take you, and sometimes that's not necessarily a bad thing.
you see that I this is where we start to hit the masculine feminine distinction here, because I feel that, and yes, I'm gonna take that societal lens and kind of like shift that over here into like what the actuality of it is like you have no clue what that best version, because that was uh, for me. I'm like, if I was a person that had no idea who my best version of myself was, and I'm trying to be this best version, and I feel like there's some hope out there, you telling me, oh, trust in that this lady is going to take you on this long windy journey and it's not going to be anything you look like, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm gonna go back to Instagram and like see what this guy's doing and what this chick is doing. Like, fuck it. Like, why am I gonna? Because it takes a lot of courage to take that path and like really surrender to that unknown and that mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, like, yes, I 100% agree with you. Like, it all comes down to authenticity, right? And it's this thing that what you ultimately did was you found habits that allowed you to assimilate yoga to reach that result, which was peace. So the commitment is just the commitment to yourself. You're just showing up for the commitment to that peace. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just continuously doing peace, and this practice is working through me. So that for you is ultimately the best part of yourself. That's what I was receiving.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say for somebody that if you have no clue what the best version of yourself actually is, in order to attract that, you have to look at that no clue and say, oh, well, if I have a blank canvas, then I can put whatever I want on it, you know? But I think this is where the other first two questions come in is like, go into that perspective, go into yourself so that you can be the best version of yourself, you know? You can't be the best version by going outside and tethering to something outside and tethering to a Kim Kardashian and tethering to an Andrew Tate and tethering to an Andrew Huberman and tethering to whoever the hell you want to tether to. It's like you're tethering to an imitation. Then that's what you're going to be. You're going to imitate something. So you're never able to cultivate and create and commit to full authenticity. And you're never able to express that because that's one of those gifts where if you're sat in that perspective and you tether to that, and you say, this is who I actually want to be. And you come in and you change the perception on this and you come back out and you come in and you change the perception on that. It's like tuning an instrument. And that's literally what your human is. Your human is an instrument. It's a vessel to come here and have this human experience. So if you want to attract the best version of yourself, which is really like play the best version of this song, that is out here already playing, you just want to tune to that. That's what you got to go in. You got to tune all the little notes, all the little chords, and then once it's playing, you just step back and hey, and you enjoy it, and then you're living in peace. You're living in samadhi. And then when you want to expand, you go, oh, you know what? I want to add a couple more chords in there. I want to add a synthesizer. I want to add a sax. I want to bring this divine union partner in, and then you tune these other things and you harmonize, and then you're gifted harmony. So it's like for me, I see it as like a spiritual game of like leveling up. Like, what do I want to attain? I want to attain authenticity. I want to attain independence. I want to attain truth, love, all these different things. And it's just a song that you could just keep going into your perspective. I mean, your perception in tune, and tune, and tune. And for me, just in a practical practice, I created this thing called divine description. And what it ultimately does is it puts you in a position of, it forces you to be in that sense of the perspective. Because a lot of us, we're talking about this perception and perspective, and some people may be like, what the fuck are y'all talking about? But if you go back to some of the other episodes, like, we speak about this in many different ways, in many different formats, and you can look at it as the masculine, the feminine. You can look at it as the anima, the animus, the shadow, the self. It's these polarities, and it's like, ultimately, just to break it down more simplistically, if you're speaking in your head, there's a speaker. But how do you hear the words? There's a listener. That's your perception, and that's your perspective. Your perspective is speaking, but your perception is hearing, and in translating that. You have the power to alter that and switch it and become whoever you want, because where you put your focus is where your attention goes. Do I want to be the perspective, or do I want to be the perception? But you're always being over here, being told what to do. And then you're constantly being bombarded, and you never speak. You just do, 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 do. So in order to attract your best self, what this course does, and it's a really short course, it's like a few exercises, it just brings you to a point of saying, okay, let me think about what this other self of me would do, as if you're creating that. And I can't give the twist right now, but within it, it brings this twist and this literally like a paradigm shift. And you go, oh, wow, this is the best version of myself. So sometimes it's hard for us, even though, yes, I may have no clue, and I can't attract something that I have no clue about. But have you ever really thought about it truly and objectively? And have you ever truly, honestly, and authentically thought about it? And that's impossible, because you can't, because then you wouldn't be attracting your best version of yourself, because you would already have the understanding that it's already here. And you have the practices, and you've created the habits that are already in your life. So if you're not at that point, I would personally say, go through something like that. Like, I can send a link. I have it posted up. Like, I think it's on my Substack. I'll post a link to it, and you can check out and try the exercise. It's probably like 30 minutes, and yeah, I would just say, listen to these last two questions and just really build that relationship with that spectator that's there. Because you're not necessarily, you're attracting what you think that you are right now, and what you're perceiving to be yourself right now. So yeah, you have no clue, because most of, like you said, society is taking us away from that. But I think that's an excuse when people say, oh, well, society's telling me to be this, it's society, and this is what success is. But it's like, also, success is different from you. And then you're constantly chasing to be in somebody else's shadow. So get out of somebody's wake and build your own relationship with life.
Absolutely. And the only reason, I just had to caveat, the only reason I was saying like my best self, because I do feel like we change. So our conception of like kind of what what we're growing into, that evolves and that changes constantly. And I guess when I talk about the mystery, what I'm talking about is that space for oneself to grow into spaces that are unknown, that are yet to be discovered about yourself. And that, like, that
right, but you're already an enlightened being, girl. You over here bending space and time and extending your tentacles into the ethers. Like, shit, I ain't even there yet. I'm like, what? My best self is changing. Damn, I just got here. I didn't even take my coat off yet. And you're like, yeah, just I lean into the mystery all day. Like, what? Me and her, we homegirls. We've been texting all day long. You don't know mystery? Listen, she gonna take you on a road trip. I'm like, I don't want to go on a road trip. I'm already in Colombia. I'm trying to get. I can't even get. That's a lie. I was about to lie. I can't even get away from mystery.
I was gonna say, I feel like you're very well acquainted with her, to be honest. I don't
right. I definitely am
right there.
And it's a toxic relationship, but I still love her.
You've been
I
texting me, you
still
just
love
didn't
her
know who
though.
you were texting. That's why. It was just a
Right.
mystery.
I be texting her too. That's why I be in different countries. I be texting her from different numbers because she be blocking me sometimes. I gotta like, all right, you know what? I gotta go. I gotta move to Colombia. Oh, I gotta move to Peru. Hit her from a new line. Hey girl, what's up? How you been? She be like, this nigga again. Damn it. All right, slide through.
Oh,
But
oh,
to
I
really
that.
honestly
That's
say
so
like
funny.
you not that your best version of yourself is up and coming. I think your life is amazing. And people listen, if y'all listening to this, I say this to her all the time. I think she got the perfect life. She done
Oh,
figured out her rhythm. She got all of these things coming in, all these things moving out. Like I love that, and that's one thing. And that's also a question I asked you too, and which was interesting because you have still yet to ask in all of my time of knowing you about what is the rhythm of your life. And I'm not throwing this into the question of you guys right now because we're gonna stay focused because this could go off. But I like to ask people that in a sense because I feel like they always like try to answer. And I'm like, I really honestly, I'm asking the question. I don't even want the answer. I just want you to think about that.
hmm.
Like, what is the rhythm of your life? You
Hmm.
know, because I see your rhythm and I'm like, yo, she is harmonizing of it. She's earth, wind, and fire all at the same damn time on the stage. And they're rocking it out, rocking it tough with her Afro puff. You know what I mean? So it's like when I look at people and I look at humans in that way, like I always show my um or express my reverence for them through questions because it's things that I see about them in that way. So it's like to have a rhythm of that life, like I think you're the best version of yourself. I mean, I'm not doubting you and I'm not like placing
I
no
think
limits on
you know
you.
why I'm reticent. I think the reason why. Thank you for like just bigging me up there. Like I love that. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it. But I think the reason why I'm always reticent, and this is always I'm always humble because even if I say this is my best self now, then I'm like, I might get complacent. I might suddenly feel like, oh, cool, I'm here, I'm arrived, and put my feet up. And no, there's still like, no, because I feel like, okay, I'm the best for where I am right now. But there,
Uh,
and if I think about where I am right now compared to where I was 2 years ago, I could have never imagined this. There's absolutely no way.
mm,
There was not even the capacity to imagine that my life would look like this today. So I'm just like, what could it look like in the next 2 years? I have no idea. And so I always want to just leave space for that because that is where, for me, that's divine, that's divine grace because that's like, hey, um our egos sometimes don't know, and that's good. That's a good thing. like
always
that's
keep them in the mystery. Keep your
because
ego in
they
the
like, yeah,
mystery.
because the ego
That's
likes to know,
ooh.
the ego wants to know, the ego likes to control, the ego wants to have it all set and fixed and known and quantified. And actually the mystery says,
Mm,
oh, but actually there might be something even bigger, even better, even more sweeter than you could have even imagined in this moment. But because you
I
create
love that you as a woman said that the ego just wants to know. Because the next time I hear out another woman's mouth, oh, I just want to know. Oh, okay, ego.
I just want to
Yes. And y'all
know.
here to hear. Y'all heard it here. It's recorded. It's recorded. You're
Well,
on the record.
that's knowing about things that have already happened, not necessarily things that are about to happen. That's about anyway.
Is that quantifying it? Anyway. So what's one thing you've committed to throughout your life,
Look,
consciously or
you know,
unconsciously?
and this is the thing, because what I realized, yeah, when we were asking this question, we were like, either way, we are committing to things in our daily life, whether we like it or not, whether we know it or not. And it's just whether or not we're paying attention to what we're committing to. And I was like, okay,
Right.
you realize this. And I was like, what is the one thing? Because I was like, yeah, you could write a book, you could do this, you do all these amazing things. What is the one thing that you have done every single day of your adult life without fail? And that like is definitely a big part. And I was like, oh my God, this is like the two things I realized that I'm like, yeah, coffee and yoga. I'm like, coffee and yoga. I mean, there is absolutely nothing and no one that is going to separate me and my morning coffee. It's just like, and I realized it. And I remember I have given up coffee in my life. I have done it, you know, to prove to myself that I could do it. And I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be without coffee. I don't want to life without coffee. Coffee makes my life happier. It wakes me up in the morning. It's a ritual in the morning. It's like, you know, and I think in my mind, I'm like, well, it's only one and it's only one a day. I mean, sometimes, and I've been known to do two. And you know, we know that, yeah, life has gone off track when I'm doing 2 coffees a day. That is like, you know,
Oh
my
shit.
best self in that sense. But yeah, like that is like and that, you know, that started, I'll be honest, like, you know, when I think about how that started, I read somewhere, you know, I was in this place, like I was in my early 20s, I wanted to lose weight, and then like someone was like, oh yeah, you know what you should do, you've got to work out on an empty stomach with coffee, because coffee makes you burn more, like its metabolism makes you burn more caffeine. So I had this habit where I was like, I used to have a coffee. I never used to have coffee until I used to have a coffee to work out, and so I'd have a coffee and then I'd do my workout, and then it just became, that became my habit. So there you go. I started with an original
Wow.
motivation.
I don't want to, yeah, I don't want to even break that down and like burst your whole bubble on that. I'm just gonna let you live. I'm gonna let you live.
You know what? And yeah, I've gone through
Be
phases.
happy.
That's that, and that is it. And I think that's really in the end where it boils down to, because that's where I am with it now. Because I've gone through phases where I'm like, I don't want, you know, I don't want to be addicted to anything. Coffee's bad for you, so I don't want coffee. And so I've had all of these phases in my relationship with coffee. And now I'm at this phase where I'm like, it makes me happy. I like it and I enjoy it. And I'm actually okay with that. So now it's a like part of my life. And then I heard and then I heard my lineage holder of it's like, no coffee, no prana. So it's like, you know, coffee is part of what gives you the energy to do, you know, sometimes some really big energetic stuff. Unless your name is Max, of course, in which case you've just been born born powerhouse of energy, to just go into life and move things and make things happen. The rest of us need coffee. So
He works fine for me.
tech.
Time, energy, and attention. Woo.
True.
No, no, I fully feel that. Like to really, because really what it sounds is like what I'm hearing behind all of that, like 86 in the coffee and 86 in me connecting neurologically what your relationship is with coffee. I want to just look at and see objectively that you are just committed to happiness.
Yes,
And that is the result that is creating, you know, and you're creating habits around that and you're committed to the happiness.
because
And I
I
think
think
that's the biggest. Go ahead.
absolutely, and I think it's really important, because I think, because I've given up coffee numerous times. So for me, I've proved to myself, if I want to, I can kick this. I've got the willpower. If I really didn't want it in my life, if I really thought, you know what, it's bad, you know,
For how long?
if I had a convincing, I gave it up for like over a year, like it was like a year and a half. I did it, and I kind of got used to it. And then I think I had one,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, why? Why am I doing this to myself? I was like, I love this. This just, I don't know. Like you said, it makes me happy. So I'm like,
Yeah.
it makes me happy. And I'm like, so why do I don't need to minus any more happiness from my life? Like, I'm
There you
like, I
go.
don't need to do that. Like, so it's
Yes.
okay. If it was really unhealthy, really bad, I mean, I've done some extreme things to make sure I've got a coffee in the morning when I'm traveling and things like that. I've done some like crazy, weird things, but still, you know, like it's
I'm
not
not even gonna ask any questions.
done some really strange things. But you know, yeah, I think I'm okay with that. And then yoga as well. Obviously, yoga's a big one. It's part of the fabric of my life. And I guess when I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about things that just become the fabric of your life without you almost realizing. You just sort of wake up, you do these things, these habits that we probably don't really pay attention to because they're just so part of our lives, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, those are like, when I was thinking about this, I was like, yeah, those are two things I think. And they're just like, yeah, part of the fabric.
Mm. Yeah, I'm with that. And
Oh,
yeah, I feel like everything in that is you're fueled by that inspiration, you
mm,
know, and that happiness and that joy and that deeper set perspective of how you want to, where you want to spectate from in life.
mm,
Um, and then you just allow those habits to be created, you know. And for me, I feel like that is the epitome of life happening, you know, and us like stepping out of the way of creation, you know, and not necessarily focusing on creating habits. Um, because I feel like one thing that I wanted to touch on with what you said was, you know, how these things just kind of come along and be like, oh, you know, yeah, I love coffee and this is what I choose and like this is what makes me happy. I think there is a level of also like just to kind of bridge this consciously and unconsciously the things that we've committed to is where we practice our level of discernment, you know, for the things that we have in life. Because no judgment at all, but if you're living a life that, you know, all you're doing is getting money fucking bitches, like, oh, and that makes me happy and I'm drinking all weekend and like I'm pushing through it and you know, doing whatever the case may be, but doing the most in that way, like, yeah, you could be happy for sure. But also, I feel like our bodies and our minds, if they have been compromised
mm,
and you don't have that allowance to go back into that spectator and have that conversation, then we do have to practice this level of discernment to say, am I actually happy or am I just tethered to something that I've connected neurologically or biologically to what the happiness feeling is, which is just dopamine, you know? And I think that's where we have to have a respect and you have to understand about harmonizing the body is you have a physical body, you have a subtle body, and you have a causal body. And to get all three of those in line and harmonized on the same page, you have to have a relationship with all of them. You know, if you're putting fucking Hennessy and chicken wings into your body, but then also trying to meditate, like, fam, that's not gonna happen. You know, like you're fucking up the communication. And if you're sitting here talking about, oh yeah, I'm being led by spirit, but spirit is leading you down to, you know, 463 Oak Street to buy, you know, a eighth of cocaine. I'm sorry, that's not spirit. That's just the drugs, you know, talking to you. You know, it's calling to me. It's calling to me. So I think that's important to have that understanding of what your perception is on things, because this is something that I thought about this question. Actually, I feel like a little bit deeper than what I normally think about these questions. And it really, like, I just thought about it and threw it out there. And it was funny because it was a couple, like 2 days ago when I thought about the question. And then I just thought, I've been in my practice and in my routine, a new routine very consistently. And the thing that I've felt that I've always committed to, and I really thought back to even when I was younger, and I can say this truthfully without any hesitation, like through my whole life, has always been to being optimistic, or I would borderline say joyful. I feel like joyful is a little bit more like external, but I can't really remember a time where I was like significantly depressed, significantly sad. And this is something that I unconsciously committed to, obviously, and also consciously committed to. Was always just being in good spirit. I think that's what it is. In good spirit. Whatever it was. So I feel like having that discernment of what good spirit is, um, has always placed me in that space, you know? Because yes, I've definitely had my unconscious times where I was, doing shit that I really didn't need to be doing and doing things in excess. And I didn't necessarily have balance at that time, but I was balancing things technically. So these deeper set things that I am embodying now in a different light were present then, but it was like, oh yeah, you're balancing, going to parties, getting home at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, taking a shower, and then going right out to work right after that, not sleeping at all. So me, I'm like, oh, balance, it's not, it's like the lies that we tell ourselves. So I feel like, yes, tethering down to that and committing to those deeper set things can place us into a space. Like if we step back, then there's more space between our human and our actual true spirit, and we're living inspired and living in spirit, and that begins to create the habits that start to form and shape our life that we actually get to witness and interact with, consciously or unconsciously.
Taking it a bit deep. Yeah. And that's like, and I guess that is something that, and I guess the two are very much interlinked, right? Because like you said, it's like you kind of doing it consciously and unconsciously, because once it becomes a habit, it somewhat does become unconscious because you don't even think about it. It just becomes part of the fabric. It just becomes
Right.
your life. It just becomes part of what you do. You don't have to think about that anymore. But when you're trying to implement it, that's when it's kind of like you're consciously putting something in motion. You're consciously like making it like creating something and making it happen. So yeah, and I think that is that. And I guess when you're thinking about when you're shining that light of consciousness on what it is you're doing and where you're creating these habits, that's what you want to be thinking about, is that like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, this becomes a sort of unconscious almost like the tape that's just the tape that's played along your life. This is the life that you lead, and actually we have our choices, and it's never too late as well. I also want to say, I do think when we're younger, that's the best time to create these things. I think that's, but the second best time is right now, however old you are. And it's never too late.
Because we can always go back in time and tune that instrument and tune those things to listen to what we need to now. And
absolutely.
I feel like, yeah, like you said, it's the things that echo into the future. And for one, I just wanted to tie in this last little tiny thing with the time, is like sometimes that can be even overwhelming. Like, oh, I got to keep this up. I got to keep drinking green smoothies for 20 years to like keep this up. It's like, nah, fuck that. But I think it's more about like what the frequency, or like, what I said about the rhythm of your life. Like, is this the rhythm that I would want to consistently play until I died? Because if we're doing that consistently through life, even if we're living to 120 years and we started at 30, that's 90 years that you've been playing the same tune. So I guarantee you that even if you do believe or don't believe in a life after death, that echo will resonate, through this time or the next time.
Into the next lifetime, for real. And yeah, I mean, and yoga very much is very much, that's the practice. It's that acknowledgement of this life and the next and the next. Yeah, and those habits echo on. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I also just want to say, just I guess to wrap up, like I guess just thinking, just last pointers, just maybe like should we just have a little free for all, or just a little quick fire roll, just like last thoughts on this? Because I guess things that are coming up for me, just to kind of wrap things up, is that there's no need to be fatalist. Just because you choose one thing today doesn't mean you can't change that tomorrow. And because something becomes habitual doesn't mean it can't be shifted and it can't be uprooted and changed. And so I think the one takeaway from this show would be like, it's your life. What do you want it to look like? How do you want to feel? Where do you want to be? And like, allow yourself to be in spirit. I love that. In spirit, inspired by whatever is possible. And then, like you said, like kind of start from that place and work backwards. Like what needs to happen on the path to find you there, and you know, be filled with hope, be motivated, be inspired. I think actually you're right. I think inspired actually is a better word, to be inspired to go after your goals and create the life that you want, or the rhythm of the life that you want.
Absolutely. Yes.
Any final words before we wrap up, Max?
That was it. Make space to create.
Yeah.
Make space for the creator to create. Oh
Yeah.
Oh, that felt good.
And I have to say, those internal spaces, that was life-changing for me, actually. The practices that you gave me, they were life-changing. So I can recommend those to anybody. And like Max said, he will share them in the, in the comments, in the links below. So do check them out. Like really, really helping bring real awareness to what's like deeper within. And then you've got something to work with, and you've got the juicy stuff to work with. So again, thank you so much again for being here with us, for watching, for staying with us, again, just joining these conversations, for being interested in how, how can we make the world a better place? How can you make your life a better, more enjoyable, thing to be in? And like, how can we just keep these conversations open and keep bringing awareness to more, shedding light on more things. So again, thank you for joining us for this conversation. Again, we ask that you please support the channel, like, share, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, and join us again next week. And we'll see you again next time. Again, thank you. Ciao for now.
Gracias y ciao.
If you like this episode, please support the podcast and the channel by subscribing, liking, sharing, or donating. You will also find all of the show notes and questions in the description, along with important links and contact details. We look forward to seeing you next time here with us on this MF Quadrant.